So we can look at example 6 now, find the exact values of these two things, and using the cast diagram or the trig graphs, these are fairly straightforward. So we're going to start with cos of 4 pi over 3. The first thing to spot here is that 4 pi over 3 is actually pi add pi over 3. It's pi plus 1/3 pi. The reason I want to write it in this way is because pi is one of our straightforward important values. We know what cos of pi is, and therefore we know where that lands on the cast diagram or the trig graph. So actually we just want to work out how far away we are from that nice neat point, and that allows us to find the symmetries. So on the cast diagram, pi is here, so pi over 3 is adding a little bit, so we're down here. This is 4/3 pi. Cos is the horizontal, so this is the guy we care about, which means what we really care about is the equivalent over here. These have the same cos value, and because this is pi plus 1/3 of pi, that means this angle is 1/3 of pi. So from our cast diagram we can see that cos of 4 pi over 3 is the same as cos of pi over 3, except this one on the left is negative and this one's positive. So I need to take the negative of cos of pi over 3. Pi over 3, well, that's one of our easy values as well. If you want to flip it into degrees, that's the same as 60 degrees. Cos of pi over 3 is 1/2, which means that cos of 4 pi over 3 equals negative 1/2, and we're finished. If you prefer to use the cosine graph to see that, then that's where pi is. So this right here is 4 pi over 3, and our gap here is pi over 3. What that means is our gap from this trough of -1 needs to match our gap from this peak of +1, so this is pi over 3. So what we care about is this value, which is 1/2, but negative. Okay, same thing from cast and from the graph. For the second one, sine of negative 7 pi over 6. So on the cast diagram, negative 7 pi over 6 means we're going around this way instead of anti-clockwise. We're going negative, we're going the opposite way. 7 pi over 6 is pi add 1/6 of pi. So I've gone around by pi, which is a half turn, and 1/6 of pi, which is a little bit further. So I'm going around to like here, and this little angle here is pi over 6, whilst this half turn is pi. Okay, and we're looking at sine, which is the vertical. So this value is sine of negative 7 pi over 6. Right, where is this the same as our straightforward one? What we want is this one over here, which has the same height, and this angle then is going to be pi over 6 because of the symmetry. So we now know that sine of negative pi over 6 must be the same as sine of pi over 6. They must be exactly the same because of the symmetry on our cast diagram. And the final thing to do is work out what this is. Pi over 6 is one of our standard values. In degrees, that's the same as 30. Sine of 30, same as sine of pi over 6, is just 1/2. So sine of negative 7 pi over 6 is 1/2. Again, if you prefer to look at the graph for this, this is our sine graph. We've gone negative, so I need some stuff over here. This is negative pi. So right here is negative 7 pi over 6, and our little gap here is a gap of pi over 6. That is the gap from this 0 So I want the gap from this 0 to be the same, so I want this to be pi over 6. And there's my repeated value.